Chapter 363, Inescapable Net, 1. After the battle, Jian Chen continued to use the Radiant Saint Force to heal himself. However, since he had used a lot of his spirit to try and seal away the dark energy within Rum Guinness, he did not have enough power to completely recover from his own wounds in one go. After healing himself to a half-state, Jian Chen stopped the process and took the tiger cub in order to look for a cave to hide in and resume the process of healing himself. While the ancestor of the Maoyun clan had escaped with grave injuries, he still knew where Jian Chen was. Jian Chen didn't know when the elder would be back with reinforcements, so he had to quickly heal. As long as he had enough strength, he would be able to escape. If he didn't, then he wouldn't be able to run far. In the case that another Heaven Saint Master were to give chase, he would not be able to cope. Jian Chen spent the rest of the day trying to regain all of his strength before attempting to use the Radiant Saint Force to heal himself once more. Now that Jian Chen had more spirit than before, his ability to control the Radiant Saint Force was even better now. Despite the severity of his injuries, it only took him another hour to completely heal himself. After his wounds were fully healed, Jian Chen didn't stop to rest. Immediately taking out a Class 5 Monster Core, he began to recover the rest of his Saint Force. After using the Heaven's Stolen Fortune to multiply his strength by threefold, the amount of Saint Force that he had used had been hefty. Right now his Saint Force was still not in tip-top shape and was slowly recovering from his exhausted state. Recovering the Saint Force was a slow process. It was only 10 hours later that Jian Chen's Saint Force had been fully recovered. Slowly standing up from the ground, Jian Chen changed into a new set of clothes from his space ring before taking the still sleeping white tiger out of the cave. It was well past the midnight hours, and the poisonous fog around the valley was even more noticeable than before. Yet, it was also weaker in potency as well. This type of poison would pose no problem to an Earth Saint Master at all. Just past the foliage of the trees, Jian Chen could clearly see the blanket of stars and the bright white moon hanging overhead, shining down on the lands. Jian Chen was still carrying the sleeping white tiger as he looked around the area. After confirming that it was safe, he left from the area under the guise of the dark night. Jian Chen quickly flew through the forest at a rapid pace. He had already discovered that there were torches lit from every direction, meaning the other factions had already blockaded the entire area, and must have hired countless of men to comb through the forest to look for the white tiger cub. Knowing that the Thousand Poison Valley was no longer safe, Jian Chen could no longer stay here. Using the cover of night to leave the valley, he began to travel through the forest with the illusionary flash. 4 hours later, Jian Chen had traveled a far distance away where the outskirts of a city could be seen to Jian Chen. Immediately dashing for the city, Jian Chen arrived at the wall of the city before silently and sneakily climbing over it and into the city. Because it was night time, the city was extraordinarily quiet with not a single inn open. Even the streets were cold and desolate without a single person. Holding the tiger cub close to him as if he was smuggling something, Jian Chen quickly walked by a quiet-looking inn. Jumping up to the 3rd floor, he quietly slipped inside through the window without being detected. Within the inn, Jian Chen set the tiger cub on the bed and then took out another monster core to restore his Saint Force. On the second morning, Jian Chen had changed his appearances to become a 30-year-old youth once more before hiding the tiger cub beneath his clothes and leaving the tavern. One of the waitresses to the inn stared at Jian Chen's back with a suspicious stare. If my memory isn't wrong, I could have sworn that I didn't see him yesterday. Could he have snuck in when I wasn't looking? After leaving, Jian Chen took himself on a stroll around the city before entering a food store. Shop owner, do you have any fresh magical beast milk for sale? This shop owner was a 40-year-old skinny but scholarly man. When he heard Jian Chen, he turned around without batting an eye at the bulge of Jian Chen's stomach. Yes, naturally, I have some for sale. Whichever type of magical beast milk the honored customer wants, our store will have it. Then let's have a look at your tiger milk. Make them all as fresh and as many as possible. Money is not a problem. Jian Chen spoke without a question. All right, honored customer, please wait one moment, I will be back with your items. With that, the shop owner walked to the back of the store to fetch the items. Patiently, Jian Chen stood at the front of the store. The tiger cub hadn't eaten for 2 days, and while Jian Chen didn't know how often the tiger cub needed to eat, it would be for the best if he had some tiger milk on hand. Soon enough, the time it took to burn a candlewick had gone by without the shop owner reappearing or any sound coming from the back at all. By now, even Jian Chen had an impatient look on his face. But for the sake of the tiger cub's meal, he could only continue to wait. Afterward, another brief moment had gone by without the shop owner ever returning. A sense of paranoia struck Jian Chen as he decided that staying here any longer would be unwise and turned to walk out. Just at that moment, a squad of armored guards suddenly walked through the doors toward Jian Chen. Crap! Jian Chen thought, knowing what this matter was coming to. Then, the commander of the squadron walked up to Jian Chen with a cold glare. Who are you? Suddenly, the already notched bows of the archers were released, causing a myriad of arrows to fly at Jian Chen while the crossbow wielders launched the heavy bolts at him as well. With a sneer, Jian Chen let a bubble of Saint force out from his entire body before spreading out 20 meters away from him with a thickness of 2 inches so the arrows wouldn't pierce it. Fire, fire, fire. Don't let him get away. The commander cried out. The soldiers continued to hustle around as they resupplied for the second barrage. Jian Chen's speed was far beyond what they had anticipated, and so by the time the archers had notched their arrows again, Jian Chen had already started to run further up the city walls. With each step he made, he accelerated in speed before he finally cleared the wall and escaped the city. Commander, he escaped. What should we do now? Give chase. Commander, should we bring people to chase after him? The other soldiers could only cry out for the commander and wait for a response, but no response came. Commander, what should we do? A captain had asked once more. Suddenly, a line of blood could be seen on the commander's neck. Then, right in the middle of everyone, the head of their commander fell to the ground. Chapter 364, Inescapable Net, 2. Outside the city walls was a flat prairie land that Jian Chen continued to fly across at a breakneck speed. With each step, he traversed at least 20 meters. Even though he was not using the illusionary flash, he was still traveling quite fast. Now that this situation had occurred, Jian Chen knew that every single surrounding city was no longer safe. Every single power had already put out an order for him to be arrested in the case they discovered Jian Chen. Because the tiger was far too conspicuous and because Jian Chen had promised Rum Guinness that he would take care of the cub would have to stay with him. Right now, the tiger cub was far too weak to protect itself. If it were to try and live by itself, then there was a good chance a mercenary group or another magical beast would get to it. While Jian Chen was running, he suddenly felt something coming from behind. Turning his head behind, an unsightly look graced his face as he saw a figure flying through the air a few hundred meters behind. Jian Chen's heart grew a little heavy at this sight. After fighting the ancestor of the Maoyun clan in the valley, he knew just how strong a Heaven Saint Master was. Even if he gave it his all, the two sides would end up being heavily injured. There was just too much of a difference between an Earth Saint Master and a Heaven Saint Master. Even after using the Heaven's stolen fortune to multiply his strength threefold, he was only barely able to fight a Heaven Saint Master. Jian Chen wouldn't be able to do anything either if the Heaven Saint Master fled, since they could fly through the air while Jian Chen could not. Looking at the flying Heaven Saint Master darkly, Jian Chen immediately used the illusionary flash in order to explode across the plains and travel 10 times faster than before. Jian Chen's sudden burst of speed caused the distance between him and the Heaven Saint Master to increase by a large amount. However, the Heaven Saint Master began to increase his speed as well, following close behind Jian Chen and trying to close the distance. The illusionary flash was a heaven-tier battle skill that Jian Chen had only a small grasp of. Despite it increasing his speed many times over, it would not be enough to outrace the Heaven Saint Master. After all, Jian Chen was running on the ground, but the other was flying through the air. Jian Chen, you cannot escape. Why not hand over the seal of Treasure Mountain back to the Shi family and save your energy? At this moment, the voice of the Heaven Saint Master could be heard like a sound of thunder that rang through the world. Hearing this familiar sound, Jian Chen turned back once more only to discover that the Heaven Saint Master flying through the air was the person he had talked to back in Mercenary City. It was one of the 4 Kai brothers. Jian Chen continued to silently try and run away. While he had the strength to fight against a Heaven Saint Master, he did not wish to fight just yet. Even if he were to beat back the Heaven Saint Master, he would have to pay a heavy price for it. With this heavy price, then if any reinforcements came, there would be no strength left in Jian Chen to fight back. Jian Chen, just return the seal of Treasure Mountain, you cannot escape. You most likely don't know this, but the Shi family and Jetta clan have joined forces. Aside from us 4 Kai brothers, there are another 4 other Heaven Saint Masters watching out for you at the same time. Knowing that you came out of the Thousand Poison Valley, us 8 men were able to go to the surrounding cities nearby and wait for you. I've already notified the other 7 of our location. You cannot escape. The Heaven Saint Master spoke. Hearing this, Jian Chen's face grew extremely dark. He hadn't thought that 8 Heaven Saint Masters would be chasing him. Facing against just one of them was hard enough, let alone 8. With 8, there would be no chance for him to fight back at all. Jian Chen's speed continued to increase as he took out a map. The surrounding area was quickly memorized by Jian Chen before he flew off into a random direction without hesitation. Utilizing the Heaven's stolen fortune to increase his speed by triple the amount, he tried to outrace the Heaven Saint Master once more using the illusionary flash. All that was left in Jian Chen's original spot was a tremendous dust storm. The sudden burst in speed from Jian Chen had caused the elder from the 4 Kai brothers to be stunned. Looking at the now gone figure of Jian Chen, he could only stutter out a phrase in amazement. Impossible. Just how could he travel so fast? In the next moment, the elder had no other choice but to chase after Jian Chen while trying to ensure that Jian Chen did not get too far away. With a newfound determination, the elder suddenly flew higher up into the air and began to follow the trail of dust left behind Jian Chen's extreme speed. Jian Chen had never traveled at such a speed before. Right now, even the scenery was completely indistinguishable to him since it was going past him at such a blur. The illusionary flash and Heaven's stolen fortune combined had allowed Jian Chen to exceed what a Heaven Saint Master could do. However, this would result in an extreme amount of Saint Force being consumed. Being a 4th cycle Earth Saint Master, he would only be able to keep this up for 2 hours. After that, he would be completely out of Saint Force. Already feeling his Saint Force reserves depleting, Jian Chen quickly took out a Class 5 monster core from his space ring and began to recover some of the Saint Force while he ran. 2 hours later, Jian Chen had already traveled for well over 2,000 kilometers. On the road, he had gone by many cities, but Jian Chen hadn't dared enter any single one of them. Now that his Saint Force reserves were empty, Jian Chen took the tiger cub to a giant mountain. The mountain was rather barren, but the peak couldn't be seen thanks to the clouds. Carrying the tiger cub, Jian Chen arrived at a stone forest where Jian Chen immediately set about carving a hole in the limestone for him to hide in for now. Aside from the outside markings, there was another giant stone that blocked the entrance so that the cave inside would be hidden. After all of the preparations were made, Jian Chen stumbled into the cave weakly. Taking out a night pearl to illuminate the cave, he looked around the newly constructed cave. Woo, woo! At this moment, the tiger cub began to wail as it started to gnaw on Jian Chen's arm while pressing its paws against his chest. Occasionally, sounds could be heard coming from its stomach, symbolizing that it was hungry. By now, even Jian Chen knew that the tiger cub was hungry. Hurriedly taking out a milk bottle to feed the cub. He knew that it had been at least 2 days since the cub had eaten. If it had been a human infant, it would have long since cried out in hunger. It was only after it had finished off 10 kilograms of milk bottles that the cub had been satisfied. The watching Jian Chen had been astonished. The tiger cub was only so big, but it had managed to drink a surprising amount of magical beast milk. Jian Chen had a total of 50 kilograms worth of milk, but the tiger had already consumed nearly a fifth of it. If the cub's appetite continued on like this, then he would only be able to feed the cub like this another 4 times. It seems that I need to collect even more magical beast milk. But I don't even know where and what other resources to gather so that the tiger cub will grow. Just what is this resource that is needed anyways? Jian Chen threw the empty bottles with a reflective pondering. The tiger cub lay on the ground with its eyes closed in satisfaction. Curling up in a cute manner, the tiger cub's wings were still furrowed close to its body in a way that made them hard to see. Afterward, Jian Chen took out another monster core to heal his Saint Force. Using both the illusionary flash and the Heaven's stolen fortune for such an extended period of time had left Jian Chen empty. 10 hours later, Jian Chen finally stood back up. With the power of the azure and violet sword spirits, his absorption rate was far faster than before. In a short 10 hours, his Saint Force had already came back to the maximum amount. Walking to the side of the cave, Jian Chen peeked out from a small crack of the entrance. It was still early with the sun already starting to rise from the west. Jian Chen didn't leave just yet, however. Vanishing his presence, he slowly moved the stone to enlarge the hole to see what was happening outside. An hour later, a single person flew past Jian Chen's line of sight before quickly disappearing as fast as it had appeared. In another moment, a fire-red-colored figure blew past Jian Chen's line of sight as well. Jian Chen waited for another 4 hours before seeing a total of 5 men fly through the sky. Not too long after, they all disappeared as well. The sky outside slowly turned to night as the sun began to set. Once more, Jian Chen returned to the inner depths of the cave and began to ponder his next step. Based off what he had seen earlier, he had known that the two Jedi clan and Shi family were already watching the entire area. Although they hadn't found his hiding spot thanks to the hidden well-concealed entrance, it was only a matter of time before the secret area would be discovered. So this meant he couldn't stay here for long. Furthermore, Jian Chen was worried that the Jedi clan and the Shi family would hire even more Heaven Saint Masters. After all, they wanted the ruler armament in his possession. It would make sense if even their ancestors were to come by themselves personally for the sake of retrieving it. Chapter 365. Inescapable Net. 3. Jian Chen sat on the cavern ground with a calm posture. Although it wasn't suitable to stay here for long, it wasn't time to leave just yet. He would have to wait until nightfall before he could leave so that the chance of being detected would be extremely low. Nightfall was already fast approaching on the outside and cast a dark light over the grounds. On the highest peak of the mountain, 8 elders stood in a circle as the violent wind blew their hair into a messy state and forced their clothes to look as if they were ready to tear apart. Third Elder Kai. Do you really think Jian Chen is hiding within this mountain range? A red-robed elder looked at one of the 4 brothers and asked. The man nodded his head. Although he is fast enough to leave me behind, I was able to see that he left no marks traveling away from this mountain range. Then would you be able to ascertain his position within this mountain range? Another person besides the 3rd brother asked. It was the 3rd elder of the Jedi clan. The 3rd brother shook his head. I couldn't. The area here is too complex and is also made of pure rock. Even if he were to leave a trace here, it would be hard to find. The other elders went quiet as they all thought about the 3rd brother's words. They had already searched the entire mountain range for half the day, but there had been no traces at all. At that moment, the eldest brother of the Kai family spoke. 3rd brother, I've heard that Jian Chen's speed was far faster than yours was when you flew through the air. Is that true? When the 3rd brother thought back to when he was chasing Jian Chen, he couldn't help but let out a sigh as he spoke. Correct. Jian Chen's speed later on was extremely fast. He was somehow able to outpace me. With that speed, I would say even the 3rd elder wouldn't be able to catch up. The 3rd brother spoke. You speak words of crap. The 3rd elder is a wind-attributed 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master. Aside from another wind-attributed Heaven Saint Master, there is no one alive that could outrace the 3rd elder in speed. The 4th elder exploded with rage. The words that the 3rd brother had said infuriated him. 4th elder. The 3rd elder waved his hand as if to abate the 4th elder's anger. The 4 Kai brothers and the Shi family were on special relationships with each other. All 4 of them were Heaven Saint Masters with high rankings. If the 4th elder were to give them no face by swearing, then a potential problem may occur. Hearing this insult from the 4th elder, the other 3 brothers grew dark in the face. The 4 brothers were friends against the same enemy, so when the 4th elder insulted one of them, he had insulted all 4 of them. Fellow brothers, 4th elder has always had a nasty temper. Please forgive us for that. Please put the blame on me instead. I hope that fellow brothers will not hold this against us. The 3rd elder spoke with a kind expression on his face as he cupped his hands together in a sign of apology. The 4 brothers' faces improved a little after this. They weren't aware of the explosive temper of the 4th elder, and so they didn't care for it. With this apology from the 3rd elder, they all immediately gave the matter no more attention. Let us discuss our next plan then to find Jian Chen within the shortest amount of time possible. He has the family heirlooms of our 2 families. We cannot afford to lose them. The elder of the Jedi clan spoke. But the area around this place is vast. Jian Chen could be anywhere within this mountain range. With just us looking for him, I feel that we should ask for more help. Let us hire some people to help us and have some other mercenary groups join in as well. The 4th brother spoke with a vexed face. The time they had spent chasing Jian Chen had been unbearable. This plan has merit to me. The other Jedi clan elder spoke in agreement. The 3rd brother of the Shi family spoke. Jian Chen is an extremely smart person. Whatever we can think of, he will be able to as well. Furthermore, we've already administered such a method once in the Thousand Poison Valley, so he will definitely be prepared for such an event. I say that he will try to take advantage of the night tonight to escape. Thus, this night is the most important night. We should split into 8 directions and watch over the area so that he won't be able to escape. After the next morning, We should send one person to go hire several mercenaries to comb the mountains and search for him. This method is decent, let's do it. With the proposal planned by the third brother, the rest of the 8 made preparations on which area to guard before splitting up. Within the dark cave, Jian Chen continued to sit with a calm expression. Although it was extremely early in the morning, he still made no move to leave the cave. 2 hours quickly went by, making it almost 4 in the morning. By this time, the tiger cub had already woken up and was crawling around the dark cave while mewling with a joyful expression. Slowly opening his eyes, Jian Chen stood up and listened for movements around the cave. Then, returning the night pearl, he scooped up the playful tiger and headed out of the cave. Walking to the cave, Jian Chen slowly moved away the stone covering the cave, afraid that he would make a loud sound and alert any of the hidden Heaven Saint Masters. It seemed as if even the white tiger had sensed that there were dangers hidden in the night and remained quiet. Poking its head out of Jian Chen's clothes, the tiger cub stared all around the area with its bright and curious eyes. Stealthily walking away from the cave without a sound, Jian Chen began to travel as if he was a specter in the night. With his presence concealed as he crossed the mountain range, not a single sound could be heard. At the same time, 10 kilometers away from Jian Chen, an elderly man was sitting on top of a mountain peak as if harmonizing with the world itself. After cultivating so hard and becoming a Heaven Saint Master, not only was he able to control the world energy to fly, he could also detect any changes that happened within it. At this moment, the sitting elder immediately opened his eyes as 2 mysterious glows began to shine within them. There's a disturbance in the energy, something's making a move. The elder's eyes grew fierce as he instantly flew into the sky like a specter in the night. Within a few breaths, the elder had landed upon another mountain range where the night had completely overtaken it. Even without much visibility, the elder's eyes could still stare down and see something of interest to him. "I've finally found you." The elder let out a smile in surprise. Then, without hesitation, he flew toward the dark figure. At the same time, the dark figure that the elder saw seemed to have spotted the elder and immediately sped up in speed. "Jian Chen, where do you think you're going?" The flying elder roared before increasing his own speed to try and overtake the escaping figure. Within the peaceful night, the elder's explosive words had rang throughout the area so that the other 7 Heaven Saint Masters would be able to hear him loud and clear. Immediately, several sharp sounds could be heard as the other 7 Heaven Saint Masters came flying into the area. Like a pigeon startled by the twang of a bow, Jian Chen immediately gave up all pretense of stealth and flew faster toward the mountain exit. The darkness of the night was nothing too major for any of the Heaven Saint Masters to be affected by, so all of the elders increased their speeds once more. In this chase, Jian Chen was able to escape the area quickly. With the usage of the illusionary flash and the heaven-stolen fortune to increase his speed, he was like an arrow in the night. In an instant, he had been able to traverse a long area of ground with a large dust cloud trailing behind. With the combined usage of both the illusionary flash and the heaven-stolen fortune, the flying Heaven Saint Master that were chasing after him quickly disappeared in his wake. Afterward, Jian Chen began to slow down a bit and stopped the heaven-stolen fortune. He knew that if he were to go too quickly, then the dust trail would give his position away and allow for the group of Heaven Saint Masters to quickly discover where he was. But not too long after Jian Chen had let up his speed, a dazzling cyan light could be seen flying through the dark night with a terrifying amount of speed. "Blast it all! It's a wind-attributed Heaven Saint Master." Jian Chen cursed before reactivating the heaven-stolen fortune. Chapter 366. Inescapable Net. 4. As he ran, Jian Chen continued to think about his options. Changing directions every so often, he made a dash for the nearest city. Jian Chen had already memorized the surrounding environment, so he knew that 1,000 kilometers away was a single first-class city. With a wind-attributed Heaven Saint Master chasing after him, he would only be able to throw him off temporarily. If he were to stop, then the Heaven Saint Master would quickly catch up. So running without a purpose or direction was out of the question. Once his Saint Force were to become empty, then he would be at a point of no return. He had to enter a city. With many different types of people around, he could hide himself without being caught. Quickly, Jian Chen made the journey to the first-class city, and when he arrived he leaped over the wall to hide among the buildings sheltered behind it. Not too long after Jian Chen's disappearance, an azure streak of light could be seen as the third elder flew through the air. Floating in the air during the middle of the night, he stared down toward the city, What a crafty youngster. Seeing how you stopped within a city, that means you cannot keep that speed up for an extended period of time. Afterward, the elder remained motionless as he studied the city with his eyes, as if trying to find a trace of Jian Chen that could be followed. Some time later, the sounds of 7 Heaven Saint Masters flying through the air could be heard before finally stopping right next to the third elder of the Shi family. Third elder, could Jian Chen have hidden himself within the city? The fourth elder asked. The third elder let out a sigh. This Jian Chen's speed is truly too fast. Even with my entire strength, I was unable to keep up with him. He managed to disappear in the city, and I've yet to figure out where he is located. How is that possible? Third elder, is Jian Chen's speed so truly fast that even you cannot keep up? The fourth elder's eyes grew extremely wide in disbelief at the words coming out from the third elder's mouth. But he wasn't the only one. The 2 brothers from the Jeddah clan could only stare in disbelief as well. An Earth Saint Master being able to outpace a wind-attributed Heaven Saint Master was an impossible feat until now. Hearing this, the third brother of the Kai family hid a small smile. If even a wind-attributed Heaven Saint Master wasn't able to catch Jian Chen, then Jian Chen escaping from his hands was not too much of an embarrassing thing. This Jian Chen is far too crafty. To hide in a city where there are thousands of people and buildings, finding him will become an extremely arduous task. If we are not careful, he'll take advantage of our carelessness and slip out among the others. One of the elders from the Jeddah clan spoke. Fellow comrades, it's already dawn. We should hurry up and assign ourselves to a specific area to ensure he does not escape our grasp once more. The third brother spoke. The way I see things is that the 8 of us should go to the city lord and have him garrison some soldiers to help us. The rest of us will then guard the cardinal gates as well as the other isolated areas of the city. This way, Jian Chen cannot escape from us. Another elder spoke from the Jeddah clan. The third brother nodded his head lightly. This is the only option left. I will go inform the city lord. The 7 of you should go spread out and guard your areas. We must maintain a strict guard. No matter who tries to leave, they must use clear water to wash their faces. This is to prevent Jian Chen from changing his face. If anyone doesn't comply, be merciless. With the plan in place, everyone set out to accomplish their side of things. Within a large garden, a group of soldiers with torches held high could be seen patrolling the area. Just from their appearances, anyone could tell that this area did not belong to a regular person. Not too long after the guards had patrolled the area, a dark shadow suddenly appeared from the side. Within the guise of night, he entered without a sound into one of the empty rooms. This figure was Jian Chen. After selecting an empty house to reside in, Jian Chen strained his ears for any outside noises before settling down with the white tiger by his side. Taking out another Class 5 monster core, he began to recover his lost saint force. The white tiger seemed as if it had sensed the danger Jian Chen was in, so on the way, the tiger cub had been very quiet as it remained around Jian Chen's chest. Its eyes looked about the area in curiosity, and when they got to the empty house, it sat by Jian Chen's side. Straining its ears as well, the cub didn't make another move. Time went by as the sun quickly hung high into the sky. By this point, Jian Chen had fully recovered his strength and stood up to survey the area. This room hadn't been inhabited by a person for a very long time, so there was a layer of dust on the ground. Furthermore, the arrangements of the furniture were rather basic, as if meant for the next resident to do the arrangements when they moved in. After sitting in the room for several moments, Jian Chen's eyes fell upon his space ring. With some hesitation, he grabbed another space ring and began to divide up his things. The ruler armaments, heaven-tier battle skill and several other precious objects went into one space ring, while the other space ring contained several sets of clothes, some monster cores, and money. Then, Jian Chen swapped out his space ring for the other one. The space ring with his more precious items went into a small box which he began to find a hiding place for it. Since there were 8 Heaven Saint Masters surrounding the city, it was difficult to predict if he would survive or not, so he needed to prepare himself. One plan was to hide the more precious items in a space ring and place it in a concealed area. Even if he were to die, Jian Chen had no desire to see the items be recovered by either the Jeddah clan or Shi family. If he were to escape from this calamity, after everything had blown over, he could come back and retrieve the items. After locking the items within the box, Jian Chen thought for a moment before hurriedly opening the box up once more. Taking the Duanyun sword and the seal of Treasure Mountain out, he placed them in a third space ring. He knew that the third brother of the Shi family had a method to find the ruler armaments, so he needed to separate them from the other precious items. Nightfall came by quickly, leaving the garden empty. Jian Chen lightly opened the doors and escaped outside with the white tiger. In a moment, he came across the well used by the inhabitants of the building. Taking the space ring with the box in it, he tossed it into the well and headed back toward the room he was staying in. Leaping onto the beams of the building, Jian Chen released a sharp amount of sword qi from his fingertips and dug a small finger-sized hole for the other space ring to be placed. Placing the space ring with the ruler armaments into this hole, Jian Chen filled the hole back up, making it extremely hard to notice and utterly impossible for even the gods to know. After all of this was done, Jian Chen let out a sigh in relief. Even if he were to be discovered, it would still not be easy for either of the two families. At daybreak, Jian Chen changed his face again. He then hugged the obedient little white tiger against his chest and lightly rubbed its head as he said in a low voice, "Little tiger, I need to go scout around to figure out the situation, and can't bring you with me. You have to listen well, and obediently stay here. Don't go running around, all right?" The tiger cub's bright eyes stared up at Jian Chen, leaving him unsure of whether or not his words were understood. Ignoring the issue, Jian Chen took out several milk bottles and left the tiger cub on the bed before leaving the room. Jian Chen discreetly made his way onto the streets from the manor. By walking from the alleyway onto the main street, he made it seem like he was just another passerby. He then began to inspect the houses to see what type of area he was in. On the gates to the villa, a large board could be seen hanging overhead with the words, "Huangpu Trading." Evidently, this area was heavily reliant on trading. Remembering the name of the villa, Jian Chen left the area and began to wander around the city. A first-class city was far bigger and more luxurious than a second-class city. When one entered a first-class city, one would be able to see several rich and strong-looking mercenaries that were clearly not seen in such concentrated amounts anywhere else. Suddenly, a loud noise could be heard as a squadron of armored soldiers visited store after store as if searching for something. On the road, they continued to question everyone in such a manner that caused everyone to grumble in annoyance and confusion. Just then, a soldier blocked Jian Chen's path. "Have you seen a person carrying a pure white magical beast anywhere?" "I have not." Jian Chen's face didn't betray any emotions as he replied, "You may go. Remember, if you are to see either a snowy white magical beast or a man with perhaps an unnatural bulge, you are to immediately report this to the city lord." The soldier's face carried a serious look as he stared at Jian Chen. "Yes, understood. If I see such a thing, I will make sure to notify the city lord straight away," Jian Chen replied. After that, the soldier didn't pay any more attention to Jian Chen and left him to interrogate someone else. After walking down 3 streets, Jian Chen could see the same soldiers visit every single store or home and block off people to interrogate them. Carelessly, Jian Chen wandered the streets before finally coming across the city gates. Instead of a steady stream of people walking in or out, there was a large congestion of merchants and travelers. Walking to the higher levels of one of the nearby restaurants, Jian Chen could only see a large amount of soldiers guarding the city gates with several large vats of water. With each person that tried to enter or leave, the soldiers would use a wet rag to scrub at their faces. Even the rich and powerful were not exempt from this treatment, much to their anger. Seeing this, Jian Chen couldn't help but smile bitterly. Right now this city was under the complete control of the Jetta clan and the Shi family. With this, they had set out an inescapable net all over the city. Chapter 367. Whereabouts revealed. In order to not rouse any suspicion, Jian Chen left the restaurant after some time and immediately went to go buy a Class 2 magical beast mount. After disguising himself as a mercenary, he set out for the other 3 gates to see if they were undergoing a similar situation. On the way, Jian Chen had been stopped several times over by soldiers. Leisurely answering the questions, Jian Chen could only secretly rejoice to himself about the fact that the soldiers did not require everyone within the city to wash their faces as well. Although his disguise was flawless almost to the point of perfection, it would not hold against water. If he were to be asked to wash his face, his disguise would wash away quickly. This entire day, Jian Chen could only wander around the city in an attempt to figure out where the eyes and ears of the Jetta clan and the Shi family did not extend to. Although he could see many good places to hide within the city, none were long-term hiding spots. Within the official halls of Huangpu Trading, an elder around the age of 70 could be seen seated at the first spot. On both sides of him, around 20 younger men could be seen with strange glints in their eyes. The elder sitting at the first spot was the current patriarch of the Huangpu clan. With a bright glow in his eyes, he slowly spoke. The city is in a strange commotion today. All of the soldiers have been ordered and dispatched to search for a person with an unknown appearance within the city. I was just notified by the city lord that all of the clans within Moonlight City must comply with the city's operation. In the case that we find a person with a snowy white magical beast or someone with an unnatural bulge, we are to report to the lord immediately. With that, the elder stopped speaking for a moment to look at a middle-aged man near him. Linda, you are the one in charge of our guards. In a moment go and take half our men to search the area under our control. Then take the other half to comb through our entire compound. In the case that he is spotted, do not let him escape, understood? Yes, Patriarch. The Huangpu clansman Linda replied before hesitating for a moment. Patriarch, this is only just a single person. Is it necessary to use so much of our resources to find him? That's right, Patriarch. I think this is strange as well. Just how could the city lord decree such an order like this? Using the entire garrison to search for a single person within the city. Isn't this making a mountain out of a molehill? Straight away all of the men sitting down at the table burst into their own misgivings. The patriarch could only sigh. This was a sudden development for me as well, but the situation is far more dire than you all believe. If the city lord finds that the person they are looking for was spotted in our territory or decides that we were hiding him on purpose, then the consequences will be severe and our clan may disappear. Upon hearing this, the group of men sitting down instantly turned pale as they all grew frightened at the consequences. Good, this meeting is settled then. Linda, go and lead the search yourself. Do not allow any accidents to happen or any stone left untouched. Otherwise, the damage to our Huangpu clan will be far too severe for us to handle. The patriarch spoke with a serious look. Patriarch, you needn't worry, I, Linda, will take charge of this matter personally. As the Huangpu clan prepared to search for the person, every other minor or major clan in Mingyang City were doing the same thing. The entire atmosphere within the city had grown to a frantic height. Within the Huangpu clan, a squadron of guards came to the villa to search the place. Whether it was the garden or log house, they did not spare a single room from being searched. Without overlooking anything, they had even searched all of the high-ranking member rooms without exception. At this moment, one of the guards arrived at one of the abandoned rooms and began to search inside. Everyone be careful. Do not allow even the cupboards to be untouched. Do not let a single detail escape from your eyes. One of the guards spoke out in warning. Suddenly, the room that Jian Chen had hidden in was opened with several guards walking in to start rifling around the place. Sensing the nearby danger, the white tiger cub silently curled up within the corner of the room as both of its bright eyes stared out along with its ears straining to listen for any sound. At this time, the bed sheets that had fallen to the ground and covered the cub were ripped apart, revealing the face of one of the guards as he looked underneath the bed. It was very spacious below the bed, and despite the tiger cub's attempt to hide, its snowy white fur was far too eye-catching to escape detection. Captain, I've found something. The guard cried out instantly. Straight away, the captain came into the room with a grace face. What is it? Captain, take a look under the bed. The guard crawled down and pointed. Crawling onto the ground to take a look, the captain soon discovered the white tiger cub that was desperately trying to hide. Quickly, notify Overseer Linda. The captain's face grew shocked as he ordered the soldier next to him. In a flash, the Overseer Linda was notified, and the moment he saw the white tiger cub, his face grew unnaturally grim as he barked, "Take positions, search the perimeter. In the case you find someone suspicious, apprehend him immediately." Yes. The guards all replied with equally serious expressions. Soon after, the white tiger cub had been brought to Linda, who then rushed it toward the patriarch's room. On the way, the white tiger cub had clearly shown its disapproval of Linda by biting and scratching at his arms and chest with a growling sound. Although the white tiger cub was not an ordinary beast and belonged to the ancient race of the winged tiger god, it had only just been born. Right now it was as frail as a newborn infant. Walking was already a hard task, and it did not have enough strength to protect itself. Within the main halls, the entirety of the upper-ranking members of the Huangpu clan had already gathered. Each one with them had a serious expression as they turned to look at the growling white tiger cub in the patriarch's hands. Have you made your investigations? Who raised this tiger cub? The Huangpu patriarch asked the entire group of people in front of him. The 20 men in front of him shook their heads slowly before Linda spoke. Patriarch, I've already made inquiries. Within our Huangpu clan, not a single member has raised this beast. All of them haven't even heard of such a magical beast before. Since it's like that, then this magical beast must be the one the city lord is looking for. Linda, go and report this matter to the city lord's mansion straight away. The patriarch spoke gravely. Even after the city lord had heard the information, the entire city dared not rest. An elder was immediately dispatched to the Huangpu clan, and even the patriarch dared not to say anything out of line to him. This elder was the third brother of the Xueqi family who had been waiting in the city lord's mansion for any information. Upon hearing that the cub had been found, the third brother had a small smile on his face, an entire body of snowy white fur, less than a meter tall and has wings. It appears that this is the tiger that Jian Chen left behind. Haha, Jian Chen, you should know by now. I've already cast an inescapable net across the entire Moonlight City. You cannot escape. After an entire day, Jian Chen had already traversed the entire Moonlight City on the magical beast mount. The situation had been as he expected. All 4 gates were being tightly watched and even the inhabitants were being interrogated. Everyone had been forced to wash their faces in order to leave the city, thus removing any idea Jian Chen had to escape the city with a disguise. His regular appearance had already been drawn and distributed throughout the city, so even if Jian Chen were to use his regular face, he would be spotted instantly. Jian Chen had rented a room within an inn and had given the Class 2 magical beast mount to a waiter to look after. After waiting for nightfall, he slipped out of the inn without a word and leaped back toward the Huangpu compound without being detected. Like a silent shadow jumping over the wall, he carefully ran toward the room where he had hidden the tiger cub. Creeping into the room, Jian Chen knelt down beside the floor and took out a night pearl from his space belt to light up the room. But the moment he looked underneath the bed, it was empty. The white tiger cub was nowhere to be seen. Jian Chen's face blanched as he immediately looked around the room with the night pearl giving him light. As he looked, he could see a series of footsteps on the dusty ground. Jian Chen's heart began to beat wildly as his mind came to a single conclusion. The white tiger cub had been captured. Within the semi-illuminated room, Jian Chen clenched his fists tightly as his eyebrows furrowed together. Leaving the room, he immediately raced for the center hall of the compound. Chapter 368. No Way Out. Carefully advancing toward the center hall, Jian Chen began to look around. Jian Chen knew that his identity could be revealed at any moment, but he had to take back the tiger cub at any cost. He had promised Rum Guinness to look after her cub, so he could not allow anything to happen to the cub. Tonight had been especially quiet in the garden. With it also being very dark and not that many patrolmen, Jian Chen had been able to sneak around to the center hall like a ghost in his pure black clothing. There was an utmost need for stealth if he wanted to take back the tiger. Just as Jian Chen drew close to the loft in the hall, a familiar sound could be heard in Jian Chen's ears. It was the growling sound of the tiger cub. Hearing the cries of the tiger cub, Jian Chen had a slight smile on his face as he immediately began to search for where the sound was coming from. He didn't think that it would be that easy to find the cub. Suddenly, the entire area became brightly lit as torches appeared everywhere around Jian Chen and dyed the place a bright red. Jian Chen, you really did return. I was thinking you were going to try and escape this time. An elderly voice could be heard all of a sudden before a person walked out among the crowd. The person who had spoke wore a white robe and had a benevolent smile to his face. It was the third brother of the Xueqi family, and right behind him were the high-ranking members of the Huangpu clan. In the hands of the patriarch was the tiger cub. Woo, woo! Upon seeing Jian Chen, the tiger cub in the patriarch's hands grew excited and began to flail its paws in an attempt to get to him. With a small but urgent growl, the 4 paws began to stamp onto the patriarch's chest, as if unwilling to be hugged by the patriarch any longer. Seeing that he had been discovered, Jian Chen leaped out from the shadows after realizing they were useless. The patriarch of the Huangpu clan began to measure up Jian Chen. From what he could see, this Jian Chen was well under the age of 30, a youth in every sense of the word. Is this really the person the city lord and these respected men are after? The Huangpu patriarch thought. Jian Chen gave a leveled glare at the Huangpu patriarch. Return the tiger cub to me. Ignoring Jian Chen's request, the patriarch turned to the third brother of the Xueqi family. Although he was the patriarch of a clan, he knew that it was utterly compulsory that he listen to this elder in front of him. The third brother stared back at Jian Chen evenly. Jian Chen, I have put up with you long enough. Return the ruler armaments back to us immediately, or else do not blame us for our actions. Although you are extremely fast, we know you cannot keep it up for long. You cannot escape from us. Jian Chen turned to the third brother with a laughing smile. I'm afraid that even after I return the ruler armaments to you, you will use them in return against me. I am no idiot. If you wish to take back the ruler armaments, you will have to come and get them. Go die then. The third brother's face grew exceedingly dark as he lost the kindly expression on his face. With a frightening glint, he flew toward Jian Chen with his saint weapon ready to pierce Jian Chen's chest. Although Jian Chen was extremely fast, he was still an Earth Saint Master in the end. Someone on that caliber of strength was no match for a Heaven Saint Master like the third brother. But when the third brother had taken action, so did Jian Chen. Initializing both the illusionary flash and the Heaven's stolen fortune, his entire figure flickered away from existence before reappearing behind the patriarch. Taking back the cub, his feet smashed against the ground and disappeared from the area once again. A ripple of energy appeared behind Jian Chen's back as he retreated. In that instant, the third brother had slammed against Jian Chen's back with extreme force. PC. Jian Chen spat out a mouthful of blood before disappearing into the night. The third brother looked up to the sky before letting out a whistle that sounded almost like a clap of thunder within the dark sky. Then, he flew into the sky and chased after Jian Chen like a speeding arrow. The moment the other Heaven Saint Masters heard the whistle from their positions, they grew startled. Soaring into the sky, they began to look down as if preparing to ambush Jian Chen at any given moment. With a plan like this, no matter where Jian Chen went, he would be followed and blocked by any one of the Heaven Saint Masters. Half a moment later, the sound of the sound barrier breaking could be heard as one of the floating Kai brothers' eyes squinted. Staring with an amazing amount of focus, he could see a black figure flying at tremendous speeds toward his direction. The fourth Kai brother let out another whistle, signaling the others to begin the trap. After taking out his own saint weapon in preparations, all of the fire elements in the area around him began to gather. With a wave of his hand, a single 20-meter-long agglomeration of sword chi could be seen before it was sent flying straight for Jian Chen. As he was escaping, Jian Chen could suddenly felt a large concentration of sword chi being sent overhead. With a startled look, he immediately leaped from the streets onto the rooftop of a nearby building without losing a fraction of speed in his attempt to dodge. Bang! A large fire-red sword chi smashed into the ground with an explosive bang, filling the air with an intense heat that blew across the environment. All of the buildings nearby crumbled underneath its might, leveling the street. As for right where the sword chi had struck, there was a 10-meter-wide, 20-meter-deep crater. Jian Chen's face maintained a grave expression as he looked at the crater. From this, he could tell the strength of this person was far stronger than the patriarch of the Moyun clan. The surrounding air around the Kai brother began to ripple with heat as if a meteorite was streaking through the sky before another attack of sword chi smashed into the ground where Jian Chen was. Seeing that Jian Chen's speed was far too much for him to keep up with, the elder quickly turned the entire place into an ocean of fire so as to ignite even the air. The heat was so intense that it could melt steel. A Heaven Saint Master was already capable of manipulating the energy of the world. The fourth brother was capable of manipulating the fire elements in the world to form a 500-meter-wide and 100-meter-tall ocean of fire. Jian Chen growled slightly under his breath as a ripple of saint force came out from within him to protect his entire body from the ocean of fire. At the same time, he used the illusionary flash to blow past the attack with another attempt to escape from the city. Suddenly, another 3 streaks of fire came across the sky like shooting stars with a fiery trail. Approaching quickly, the closest Heaven Saint Master had already burst outward with another attack of fire. By this point, Jian Chen was already surrounded by the ocean of fire. It was 100 meters tall and covered the sky with its flame. There was nowhere in front that Jian Chen could borrow for shelter, so he could only choose to continue leaping forward. The temperature within the sea of fire had been so hot that the saint force he had around his body instantly shattered and ignited his clothes on fire. It was so hot that even his hair, eyebrows, and eyelashes were on the verge of burning up. Resisting the magma-like heat fire all around him, Jian Chen continued to travel toward the exit of the sea of fire. Bang! Suddenly, a loud explosion could be heard as the sea of fire exploded. Scattering light everywhere, the darkness of the night was illuminated for a brief moment, and those who were sleeping soundly were quickly awakened. Within the sea of fire still, Jian Chen had suffered a tremendous hit.
Spitting out a mouthful of blood, he managed to escape the radius of fire toward the city. The elder floating in the air began to gasp for breath with a pale face as he sighed. Even after using such an explosive wildfire and using up almost all my energy, you weren't killed. But even that, you are still heavily damaged. I doubt that even you will get far now. At this moment, the other 3 brothers appeared by his side. One of them hurriedly spoke out. Brother, where is he? He escaped that way after him, quick. The 4 brothers immediately gave chase, and not too long after, another azure glow could be seen streaking past the 4 brothers and toward the direction where Jian Chen had disappeared to.
Chapter 369. A fusion of the azure and violet sword Qi. Not too long after, an azure streak of light could be seen at the very end of the horizon. Flying toward Jian Chen with a blinding speed, the Heaven Saint Master came to a stop in the air above Jian Chen. Although it was dark outside, this would not impact a Heaven Saint Master at all. Jian Chen, keep on running, why did you stop? The 3rd elder spoke with a cold sneer 50 meters in the air. He was no longer the amiable person from before. After squandering so much time to catch Jian Chen, the 3rd elder had already lost his kindly temperament. Sitting down on the ground, Jian Chen was currently using a Class 5 monster core to recover his strength. Even if he had decided on not running away, he did not plan on making it easy for the Heaven Saint Masters. At his death, there would be a heavy price to pay. The 3rd elder floating above Jian Chen calmly without making a single move. The other members from the Jetta clan and Shi family weren't here yet, so he had no plans on making a move toward Jian Chen. He had to make sure the rest of them would come first so as to save face for the other clan and disrupt the relationship they had between them. An hour later, 2 of the Heaven Saint Masters from the Jetta clan and the remaining brothers of the Kai family arrived. The 8 Heaven Saint Masters then locked Jian Chen within a ring, making escape impossible for him. Jian Chen, return the Duanyun sword and we will leave your body intact. The Jetta clan elder barked. Return the seal of Treasure Mountain or else we will make sure that you will beg for death. Roared another of the Kai brothers. Hearing these 2 men try to command him, Jian Chen snorted as he leaped up and tossed the still undrained Class 5 monster core at the Kai brothers. If you wish for your ruler armament back, then come and take it. For such a mighty bunch of Heaven Saint Masters, you are unable to chase down a single Earth Saint Master. If it were not for my inadequate Saint force, you would have no chance of catching me. What a useless bunch. The 8 Heaven Saint Masters grew gray in the face as they heard Jian Chen's words. They knew all too much already that not being able to catch a single Earth Saint Master was an undeniably shameful thing. Disgraceful child, allow me to see just what ability you have. The 4th elder barked out as he rushed toward Jian Chen with his yellow giant sword billowing outward with Saint force. An explosive glare could be seen in Jian Chen's eyes as he brought his awareness to the highest level possible. Using the spirit sword, the light wind sword instantly became a bright silver light that shot toward the 4th elder's throat with a sonic boom-like sound. It was as if the sword had reached the speed of light. Just as Jian Chen stood back up, a strong gust of wind could be felt coming from behind him. One of the elders from the Jetta clan had suddenly appeared behind Jian Chen to stab him with his water-attributed saint weapon. Turning around abruptly, Jian Chen used the heaven-stolen fortune to multiply his strength 3 times over. The light wind sword in his hand began to glow with an azure and violet light as it struck against the other elder's saint weapon. Following another explosive boom, Jian Chen spat out another mouthful of blood as he was thrown back down to the ground. Each and every Heaven Saint Master here was far stronger than the Moyun clan ancestor, and with Jian Chen's strength nearly running dry, he was in no position to take a single blow from any of them. Cough. Jian Chen continued to spit out blood as his face turned paler and paler. A large amount of blood had already escaped his body, and with so many severe blows, his fighting strength was all but gone. Brat, I'll make sure that you will beg for death. A coarse voice could be heard as the 4th elder of the Kai family coughed out the words with difficulty. Landing on the ground, he took out his saint weapon and stalked toward Jian Chen. Biting his lip, Jian Chen struggled to climb back up and clasp onto his weapon. After taking on the blow from the Jetta clan elder, several more cracks appeared on his sword. Even if I die, I won't allow you all to claim my life so easily. Despite the heavy injuries, Jian Chen still had a resolute glare in his eyes. A faint glow of azure and violet appeared on his sword once more, covering the entirety of his sword. However, this time, the two colors began to meld together. As the fourth elder drew close to Jian Chen, he swung the sword horizontally in an attempt to behead Jian Chen. A crazed expression overtook Jian Chen's eyes as he clutched his sword tightly. In that split moment, the combined azure and violet light began to shake for a moment before the light started to flicker and fully harmonize with each other. Just as the two sword chi fused with each other, an eye-piercing light shot forth from the light wind sword. No longer was the light purely azure or violet, it was now the two colors combined. There was azure in the violet, and violet in the azure, as if the two were one the entire time. Suddenly, an unbelievably strong amount of sword chi appeared and filled up the entire area. In a second, the entire world seemed as if it belonged to this realm of the sword. No matter where anyone went to, all they could feel was the overwhelming power of sword chi. This amount of sword chi was almost unbelievable to imagine. It allowed anyone to believe that it was strong enough to set the heavens aflame or even destroy the firmament of the heavens. But in the light wind sword, there was still a minute crack to be seen. This scene had caused all 8 of the Heaven Saint Masters to grow aghast at this unexpected change. Their eyes began to widen as they stared at the explosive light pouring out from the light wind sword with a mystified look. When it came to this sword chi, all they could feel was dread. Just what is this energy? The eldest Kai brother's voice began to tremble with fear. Suddenly, a gentle gust of wind blew across the 8 Heaven Saint Masters, reducing parts of their clothes to tiny fragments. Blade marks began to appear all over their bodies, and even their hair was reduced to tiny pieces as if grounded into powder. Slowly, blood began to appear from their wounds and dyed their entire body with its redness. The entire air around the area was no longer the same simple air. It was now imbued completely with sword chi. When the light wind had blown across their bodies, it was the same as being struck with countless blades of sword chi. Even if they were to breathe in a breath of air, their inner organs and viscera would be instantly cut apart by the sword chi gathered around them. With the fusion of the azure and violet sword chi, the entire area had become a realm ruled by the sword. This was a domain where only the sword chi remained supreme. Each of the 8 Heaven Saint Masters were utterly breathless. Shortly afterward, they began to release a large amount of saint force within their bodies in an attempt to protect themselves from the sword chi that was looming all around them. "Quick, kill him!" The third elder spoke with unconcealed fear and a trembling voice. If this went on for any longer, even if he didn't die from the Heaven Saint Masters, then he would perish by the repercussions. The longer Jian Chen wielded the fused azure and violet sword chi, the stronger the repercussions would be. The torment on both his mind and body had caused Jian Chen to howl out almost animalistically. Leaping into the air with reckless abandon, he charged toward the closest Heaven Saint Master and scattered the light from his sword onto him. The moment the Heaven Saint Master had the sword pointed at him, he suddenly froze in place. Feeling the attack of Jian Chen, the eldest Kai brother blanched as he tried to retreat back, only to feel terrified when he realized that he was stuck in place. Even the space around him seemed to have frozen in place as he stood firmly in place without being able to budge. Overwhelmed with shock and terror, the eldest brother immediately tried to use his inner saint force in order to break free of his constraints. In the end, it was futile. He made no advancements anywhere. Right in front of the terrified eyes of the eldest brother, Jian Chen's light wind sword speared straight through his chest before the fused sword chi exploded within his body. In an instant, his entire body exploded into small pieces of flesh and bone before the eldest brother could even scream. And thus, the eldest Kai brother had his life extinguished. Peace. After killing the eldest brother, Jian Chen let out yet another mouthful of blood. The repercussions were already reaching the limits of what Jian Chen could handle. Blood was starting to drip from all 7 openings on his heads, and combined with his extremely pale face, this visage made him seem like a horrifying ghost. Eldest brother, eldest brother, eldest brother. As soon as their eldest brother died, the other 3 brothers' eyes grew bloodshot with anger and disbelief. Blast it all. Just what energy is this? How could it be this strong? We must kill him quickly, or else we are all in danger. An elder from the Jeddah clan cried out. We cannot delay any longer. Unleash your battle skills. The third elder spoke in a serious tone. 2 Heaven Saint Masters had already died by Jian Chen's hand. This was a result that he had not expected. He had never heard of an Earth Saint Master that could kill a Heaven Saint Master. With a mutual look at each other, the two elders from the Jeddah clan immediately began to utilize their heaven-tier battle skills while the third elder began to make his move as well. Jian Chen, you shall pay for the death of our eldest brother with your life. The third brother roared out loud in righteous fury as he began to use an advanced earth-tier battle skill along with his other two brothers. With the Heaven Saint Masters all using their battle skills, the combined power was far greater than the heaven-tier battle skill Mingdong had used. With just the 3 earth-tier battle skills, an oppressive amount of power forced itself onto Jian Chen's body, causing him to gasp as his bones began to crack under the pressure. In the form of a large long-ranged attack, the 3 brothers of the Kai family released a flame that seared across the skies and shot toward Jian Chen. Ah!
Jian Chen let out a howl to the heavens as he focused all of his strength into his right arm and brought his light wind sword smashing down onto the attack aimed at him. The fused sword Qi had devoured the attack from the 3 brothers and instantly shattered their saint weapons at the same time. At the very moment their weapons broke, the 3 brothers' blood instantly filled the sky. The glow on Jian Chen's sword began to dissipate now that Jian Chen had reached his limit and could no longer handle either the fused sword Qi or the repercussions that came along with it. Suddenly, the weather began to grow unstable as a single layer of black clouds began to descend down from the skies. Several flashes of lightning could be seen crackling within the clouds as well. The atmosphere began to grow tense as the entire area was slowly consumed by this new source of power. Following soon after, an unbelievably strong amount of pressure descended upon Jian Chen, forcing his bones to crack and shatter. Facing the sky with an even paler face, Jian Chen could only see the 2 elders from the Jeddah clan and the 3rd elder from the Shi family protect themselves with a layer of saint force. Floating high in the sky, the 3 Heaven Saint Masters were using their heaven-tier battle skills at the same time with a power so large that they had influenced the weather itself. A sharp stinging pain could be felt all over Jian Chen's body as he struggled to keep himself standing upright with a victorious smile. He had already pulled 2 Heaven Saint Masters to their deaths and shattered the saint weapons of the 3 remaining Kai brothers. If he could take their battle skills, then even death would be worth it. In a flash, the preparation time for the 3 Heaven Saint Masters came to an end. In the next moment, 3 rays of dazzling light could be seen jetting toward Jian Chen with a speed that shook the air around them. The 3 Heaven Saint Masters were all extremely cautious and did not want to use their saint weapons to clash with Jian Chen. Unconsciously, Jian Chen had readied his already fractured light wind sword up in a guard stance. Following a loud bang, the 3 Heaven Saint Masters' battle skills struck Jian Chen's weapon and body. Without any sort of resistance, Jian Chen's light wind sword shattered. Filling the air with the pieces of the sword, it began to transform back into the energy of the world and return to the void. Like a kite without an anchor, Jian Chen's body was blown back 50 meters and fell to the floor ruthlessly. Chapter 371. Escape from Calamity. The 2 Jeddah clan elders and the 3rd elder from the Shi family all gathered by Jian Chen's body. Although they had managed to kill Jian Chen, their faces did not seem very healthy. That was because they were still frightened out of their minds from the battle. The frightful amount of energy that Jian Chen managed to release, and used to kill the 4th elder and the eldest brother of the Kai family, was quick and simple. In the end, even the 3 Kai brothers had their saint weapons destroyed. This was a show of power that was far beyond what a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master could accomplish. This left the 3 remaining survivors terrified since Jian Chen was only an Earth Saint Master. Jian Chen's final burst of energy came from nowhere. Just how strong was that blast? One of the Jeddah clan members gravely asked. Silently, the 3rd elder began to ponder for a moment. Jian Chen is quite the strange individual. He must have cultivated some sort of secret technique that is unknown to us. It would appear Jian Chen is no ordinary figure. Let us hope that no strong clan supports him. The other Jeddah clan member worriedly spoke. That is unlikely. If Jian Chen truly did have a strong clan secretly supporting him, someone would have come to his rescue when we were chasing him ages ago. It is my guess that Jian Chen was fortunate enough to come across moments where he had gained unbelievable power boosts. The 3rd elder spoke. That's true. We've killed him already, so there is no need to talk about this. Let's take back our ruler armaments then. Most likely, Jian Chen's space ring will hold items of value. If we come across some sort of extraordinary battle skill or miraculous cultivation method, I propose that both of our clans share it in order to avoid a monopoly.
The elder from the Jeddah clan spoke.
Without any hesitation, the 3rd elder replied, of course.
For now, let us take Jian Chen's space ring and take back what is ours. The third elder didn't wish to take Jian Chen's space ring without the consent of the other two factions, since his space ring would also contain the property of the Jedi clan. After the two elders from the Jedi clan nodded their heads, the third elder took Jian Chen's space ring. Silently he put up his guard against the other two elders. He carefully began to inspect Jian Chen's space ring. After a while, the third elder's face blanched as he cried out in shock. "This is terrible, the ruler armaments aren't inside." "What?" The two elders cried out in shock as well. "Let me see."
One of the elders took the space ring from the third elder's hand and began to rifle through it impatiently before his expression became extremely ugly.
"That scoundrel!"
The elder cried as he flung the space ring to the ground with a displeased look.
The third elder looked at Jian Chen's body with a furious look. What a rogue Jian Chen is! Afterward, the three began to combine together in Jian Chen's conscious, fusing with Jian Chen's soul. An hour later, a figure could be seen flying through the air. When he passed this area, he suddenly stopped in midair, then quickly descended to where Jian Chen's body lay. Giving the body a quick look, the figure couldn't help sharply inhale as he muttered, "What a tenacious life force. With even his head stabbed, his soul has yet to fade away. Bah, since you're not dead with such serious injuries, I'll take you home."
With that, the man waved his hand and enveloped Jian Chen with a gentle saint force, bringing him along through the air.
There was enough to the point where the tiger cub could feel several sharp fangs starting to grow within its mouth. As the tiger cub continued to eat the remaining parts left behind by Jian Chen, it continued to howl in sadness. Not too long afterward, the entire area had been cleaned up by the tiger cub. By this point, while there was no significant change in the tiger cub's body, its ability to move around had grown significantly.
All four of its limbs were sturdy and strong, and it no longer had the same difficulty moving anymore, nor were its movements awkward.
Opening its mouth, the cub took one bite of the nearby dirt before spitting it back out. The originally bloody dirt had returned to its original state as if there had been no blood in the first place. After 10 hours, the white tiger cub had fully cleaned up the area so that not a single speck of Jian Chen's blood remained. Not only Jian Chen's blood had been taken, but even the opposing Heaven Saint Masters had been absorbed. For the tiger cub, the amount of energy remaining in their blood was like a tonic for it. After absorbing all of the energy, the white tiger cub had grown even stronger. Even the sharp fangs in its mouth had grown bigger and sharper. Once all of the blood was absorbed, the white tiger cub continued to circle around the area with its nose constantly sniffing. Finally, it broke out into a run that made it look like it was flying as the wings on its back unfolded almost like it was preparing to fly. A series of pictures began to flow through the chaotic space in Jian Chen's unconscious mind, one after the other in the form of a grotesque gas. Sometimes, he would see a white-haired elder. Sometimes he would see a red cloud that tore through the air itself with its lightning. Sometimes, it was the two azure and violet sword spirits appearing as if they were lovers as they flew through the sky and danced with a metallic song of swords. Occasionally, the figure of a single crane-haired elder could be seen wielding the two azure and violet deity swords as he flew through the air and decimated magical beast after magical beast. At times, the two deity swords fused into one and created chaos throughout the world, destroying both enemies and the world itself. Then, Jian Chen saw the azure and violet deity swords shatter apart into the world and slowly disappear into a mountain range. After an unknown amount of time, Jian Chen opened his eyes once more as he woke up. Immediately, a dizzying sensation began to occur in his head once more, but it wasn't as severe as the first wave. Therefore, this time Jian Chen did not fall unconscious. Staring blankly all around him, Jian Chen could see that he was currently resting upon a bed in a wooden house. His back was up against a wooden bed and footprints could still be seen on the floor. The room itself wasn't all that big and was roughly 8 meters wide with very little furniture. Where is this place? Jian Chen began to look around himself with confusion. But when he tried to climb out of the bed, more pain struck and snaked up his body, racking his nerves. The sudden intense pain caused Jian Chen to cry out once more and break out into a cold sweat. His originally healthy red face once again turned pale. Gritting his teeth, Jian Chen lifted his head with difficulty to observe his surroundings. This time, he immediately froze in place as he saw a 30-centimeter hole in his chest, nearly separating his entire body into two in a grotesque shape. There was dried blood everywhere around the wound. This wound would horrify any person.
Seeing the situation he was in, a tidal wave of memories began to charge forth into his mind from when he was battling the 8 Heaven Saint Masters.
Did I not die? Jian Chen's expression was rather dazed, but he soon regained himself as a joyous look overcame him. I didn't die. I really didn't die. Jian Chen couldn't hold in the emotions within himself. As soon as his body began to tremble, the wound in his chest began to act up, causing Jian Chen to grit his teeth together. After a moment, the pain abated, leaving Jian Chen to collapse back onto the bed weakly gasping for breath.
Laying there quietly without any energy, he began to think about his condition.
A clear image of his current state could be seen within his mind. His perspective was a lot stronger than what it was before, but he couldn't feel happy about that just yet, and neither could he feel anything in his current state. Right now, the situation that had happened to him had left him in shock. His current situation was extremely grave. It was practically a total mess.
All of his organs were on the verge of failing and even his heart was shattered, but even after such a serious blow, he had not died.
But that had not been the most serious thing. The true extent of the damage that Jian Chen suffered was from the light wind sword which broke after years of bitter cultivation. Although his dantian had not yet disappeared, there were no signs of the sword spirits. Even his saint weapon had been broken without a trace. The dantian had lost all source of his energy, meaning all of his cultivation had been lost irrevocably. Jian Chen had been utterly dumbfounded. After losing his saint weapon, he had gone from a talented genius of renown to becoming a cripple. This was an incredibly serious blow to him. Could it be? Am I now a cripple?
Jian Chen continued to stare at the ceiling with a dazed look.
His eyes were filled with an unwillingness.
This was because he had far too many things to accomplish still, and in order to accomplish them, he would need a tremendous amount of power.
Creak! At that moment, the door suddenly creaked open as a middle-aged man walked through the doors. He was around 40 years old with a steady face and wore clothes that were patched all over.
Despite the poor clothing, they did nothing to hide his unordinary air.
You're awake. The man stared at Jian Chen. Regaining his senses, Jian Chen looked at the middle-aged man listlessly. I thank you for rescuing me. The man walked toward Jian Chen and stopped at his bedside with a smile. You are truly tenacious in order to take such a fatal blow without dying. If this were anyone else, even a Heaven Saint Master would have died. The man suddenly stopped talking for a moment. The wounds you suffered were horrifying to say the least. Even your inner organs were crushed. Aside from a high-leveled Heaven Saint Master healing you, it will be incredibly difficult to heal your wounds. Jian Chen was silent as he took in the information. With his saint weapon destroyed, he had lost all of his martial abilities. Seeing the look of daze in Jian Chen's eyes, the middle-aged man sighed. Kid, think for a moment. Even if you were crippled, you can still live an ordinary life. Although it will be difficult to do anything marvelous, you'll learn to deal with it. I'll go ask my father later for a Radiant Saint pill so that you can heal faster. Jian Chen spoke with some difficulty before turning back to look at the ceiling once more. Whoa, so you even know your name still. That's good. You haven't suffered any retardation. The fatty spoke with a pleasant smile as if Jian Chen not becoming a retard was a good thing. The fatty stilled as he looked at the wound on Jian Chen's chest with curiosity. Jian Chen, just what type of magical beast did you fight in order to gain those wounds? Do you want me to have my dad to bring it back? You don't need to worry. My father is extremely powerful. He'd definitely bring it back and you can have your revenge. Hey, why are you quiet again? Do you not like talking or what? Hey, just what's so good looking on the ceiling that makes you stare at it so much? I built this room 2 years ago. Is it not up to your standards or something? Hey, Jian Chen, say something. Do you not like hearing me talk? But Jian Chen didn't say another word and continued to stare at the ceiling in a stupor while the fatty continued to speak into his ear. Tianyu! A voice rang out as the previous middle-aged man from before entered the room. Dad, you're back. Why is he looking at the ceiling so much? He doesn't look like he has become an idiot. The fatty began to plead to his father for an answer. With a light voice, the man replied. Tianyu, this man has suffered wounds that he has not healed from. Let him rest for now. Oh, I get it. Then Dad, I'll be leaving now. The fatty said before leaving the room. The middle-aged man walked toward Jian Chen's bed and handed him a round-looking pill. I know you've suffered an unbearable amount of damage, but don't think about it too much for now. Just focus on your recuperation. Living is the most important thing. He spoke before inserting the white-colored pill into Jian Chen's mouth. This is a Class 8 Radiant Spirit pill. Although it cannot heal your wounds completely, it'll at the very least patch up the hole in your chest. With that, he left the room once more. Jian Chen's entire body was then enveloped by a milky white glow as the Radiant Saint Force within the pill began to leak out. The amount of Radiant Saint Force in the pill was so strong that even Jian Chen at his peak would still barely be able to match up to even a single %. This was the difference in quality. With Jian Chen's entire body enveloped in Radiant Saint Force, his wounds began to heal at tremendous speeds, forcing even the hole in his chest to regenerate with new skin. Not too long after, the hole had been covered over by new skin. At the same time, the internal wounds that Jian Chen had taken were starting to heal. Even the withered skin began to fall off as new tender-looking skin replaced it, revealing a white and sleek shine almost. Not a single scar could be seen on his body. In a little bit, Jian Chen's body looked as if it was entirely new. Not a single wound could be seen on his body, making him seem almost perfect. Slowly, the Radiant Saint Force began to dissipate from his body. While it looked like Jian Chen was fully healed on the surface, his internal wounds were still quite severe. The Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill was extremely potent in nature, but there just wasn't enough quantity. Thus, it was not able to fully heal Jian Chen. Despite this, Jian Chen had been moved. His previously listless eyes began to recover with emotions as he felt the changes happen within his body. With a hoarse voice, he muttered, "How would I regain my strength? I need to recover all of it. But how?" Suddenly, Jian Chen's mind felt a jolt. It was at this moment that he realized that his own mind obtained a few more things and that his own soul had grown stronger. Sensing the changes within his body, Jian Chen was startled. Quickly calming himself down, he closed his eyes and began to envision himself inside his mind. The mindscape of his mind was chaotic in nature. Nothing could be seen clearly, but in the center, the azure and violet lights could be seen floating around with the multicolored stones slowly revolving around them. These are the sword spirits. How did they get here? What even is this place? Jian Chen's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at the sword spirits. Suddenly, the sword spirits shook as a stream of consciousness flowed from them. All of their knowledge, thoughts, and ideas began to be transmitted into Jian Chen without a single sound by a mysterious manner as if it wanted to be comprehended by Jian Chen. This is my consciousness? Jian Chen realized what the two sword spirits were relaying to him. Soon after, the two sword spirits continued to relay information to Jian Chen via the same mysterious manner. After a while, Jian Chen understood what the circumstances were for him. So I died, but because of the sword spirits, my soul was rescued by them. And now my soul is fused with the two sword spirits. Finally understanding the entire picture, he didn't know if he was happy or worried about what had occurred. After conversing with the sword spirits, he knew that they had fused with his soul to form a special existence. But he didn't know whether or not it was still his soul, or if it was now the sword spirits. After pondering it for a while, Jian Chen calmed down. While this result was extremely shocking and hard to believe, his soul had truly merged with the sword spirits while they retained all of their wisdom. While the two had fused, both sides were capable of independent thinking. This was truly a mysterious existence. Just what's going on here? How did I transform into such an odd state? Jian Chen began to mutter to himself. To him, this situation was far too incredible. Another stream of thought came out from the sword spirits once more. I am me, and the sword spirits are the sword spirits. They had only used such a strange method to save and preserve my life. Jian Chen understood the meaning behind the stream of thought. It felt as if no time had passed within his conscious. It was as if the entire area had gone still, but instead of remaining in this area, Jian Chen began to retreat from his mind after he had received the answers to his questions. The moment Jian Chen had opened his eyes, he took in the sight around him. It was only then that Jian Chen had truly taken notice that his soul had grown inexplicably stronger. He could easily sense anything within a kilometer from his position. It was only because he was depressed at first that he felt as if there was no such change from his soul.
Suddenly, the father of the fatty appeared out of nowhere as he addressed the flames eating away at the house. Wailing, the fatty looked toward his father with a wretched but innocent face. "Dad, I don't know either. Everything was perfect. Just how could the house catch on fire? There wasn't even any light sources anywhere." Hearing that, the father's eyes turned toward Jian Chen with a leveled stare, but he said nothing. The fatty's eyes swiveled toward Jian Chen as if he had come to a conclusion as well. With a gasp he cried, "Dear gods, Jian Chen, don't tell me you're suicidal." Jian Chen stood up by himself with some difficulty. Although his wounds looked like they were healed on the surface, anyone that looked at him would know that any small movement caused Jian Chen a tremendous amount of pain. "I am terribly sorry, this was not intentional." Jian Chen let out a small smile on his face, indicating that his mood had improved a bit from earlier. "Oh my, Jian Chen. I beg you 1,000 times over, don't be depressed. You're so young, you can't go kill yourself. You absolutely must continue to live." The fatty fretted as he looked at Jian Chen, thinking that he had done something foolish in his moment of depression. At the sight of the fatty fretting over him, Jian Chen couldn't help but let out a small smile. "Don't worry, I won't kill myself." After making sure that Jian Chen was not pretending, the father laughed. "It seems you've already gotten over it. Quick, put out the fire. Faster with the water, everyone move faster." At this moment, the villagers were still bringing bucket after bucket toward the fire in an effort to combat it. Walking forward to stop the villagers, the middle-aged man spoke. "There is no need to be so panicked. Please rest for now. Whether it burns or not, we will have to rebuild it anyways." "If you say so, Uncle Xueqi, then we'll take our time." The villagers immediately stopped their frantic movements and addressed the man with a respectful greeting. "Ai, my poor house. It seems that I have to rebuild it once more." The fatty wailed. At this, Jian Chen felt extremely embarrassed. In such a careless moment, he had accidentally set the house he was in on fire. This made him feel apologetic. "I am truly sorry. When I recover, please allow me to help you rebuild." Jian Chen spoke apologetically. The fatty's eyes sparkled on his face as he replied. "Okay then. Don't you forget it then. When you get better, the two of us will build a house even bigger than the last one." As soon as he finished speaking, the fatty suddenly looked behind him in surprise. "Grandfather." "Jian Chen, look. My grandfather is back." Turning around slowly, Jian Chen could only see a hoe-wielding elder walking from some distance away. He looked rather ordinary like anyone else around his age. A single piece of straw held his hair together, and even his clothes were of ordinary make. Both of his legs and the clothes around them were covered with dirt as if he had spent the entire day working the fields and had just returned home like a farmer would. "Grandfather, the person father rescued has finally woken up. Let me introduce you, his name is Jian Chen." The fatty cried out in a hurry to greet his grandfather. The elder looked at Jian Chen for a moment before turning back to the fatty with a kindly smile. "Little fatty, why is your house on fire?" The fatty looked at Jian Chen as well. Jian Chen had wanted to kill himself in his depression, but everything's okay now. He has accepted life. After hearing such a statement, Jian Chen had nearly fell to the ground in shock. This fatty's words held nothing back and were based off of his own judgment. It was as if he was still a child, something that was odd compared to his current age. After he heard the fatty's words, the elder began to laugh as he walked up to Jian Chen. With a kindly smile he spoke. "Youngster, those who do not die are bound to come across fortune. Take this spirit pill and eat it. It should heal your inner organs to some degree at the very least." Out of nowhere, the elder took out a pill and gave it to Jian Chen. Seeing the elder take out another pill, the fatty's father had a shocked look on his face. "Haha, Jian Chen, this is a Class 8 spirit pill. An especially rare treasure. It seems that my father has seen fit to give you too. I thank the elder, but this item is far too precious for me to accept." Jian Chen spoke respectfully. He knew just how rare and precious radiant spirit pills were since they were made by radiant saint masters by using their own saint force. A single pill like this was far more than what Jian Chen could accomplish. The elder laughed. "This item has little use for me here. It is coincidental that you were in need of it, so take it and recover as soon as you can." After some hesitation, Jian Chen submitted and took the pill from the elder. Carefully putting it away safely, he knew that this pill was far too expensive for him to lose. "Little fatty,
Go and find a room for Jian Chen to rest in."
After that, the elder threw down his hoe and headed to another house not too far away.
Looking at the retreating back of the elder with a complicated look, Jian Chen didn't know what to think. "Jian Chen, let's go and find you a new room." The fatty spoke as he walked away. Soon enough, Jian Chen found himself in another bed. He needed to rest as little fatty had said, so he sat down on the bed and began to sleep. After a while, Jian Chen managed to calm himself down and tried to control the radiant saint force around him to heal. The Class 8 spirit pill was far too precious for him to eat just yet. Just as Jian Chen began to think, a milky white ball of light began to form around him. Feeling the speed of the radiant saint force gathering, Jian Chen couldn't help but smile faintly. Chapter 375. Recovery of Jian Chen. Afterward, Jian Chen began to heal himself using his stronger control over the radiant saint force. Because his internal wounds were even more severe than his external ones, it took Jian Chen an entire day of stubbornly healing himself before he had completely recovered. The following day, Jian Chen walked out of the room to take in the morning air. The little fatty had stayed in the next house over as Jian Chen's neighbor. At this moment, he had just walked out of his room as well only to see Jian Chen right next to him. With a smile he cried out, "Hey, Jian Chen, are you fully healed now? I thank your grandfather for giving me the pill. I've fully recovered from my wounds now." Jian Chen smiled. "Haha, that's great. You've finally gained some free time. Let's go, I'll take you on a tour of the village and introduce you to everyone." As he spoke, the fatty led Jian Chen by the arm toward the village without a break in his stride. Not too far away, Jian Chen could see the grandfather of the fatty walking away with a hoe over his shoulder. "Grandfather, are you going to the fields again?" Little fatty called out to his grandfather with an enthusiastic greeting. The grandfather laughed as he spoke. "That's right. There's still some plants that haven't been planted yet, so I have to hurry. Grandfather, I'm going to take Jian Chen around the village. I'll be back later to help you." "Haha, go on then. Take Jian Chen around for a stroll and get to know everyone. This village hasn't seen many outsiders, so you should be able to make a good impression." The grandfather laughed merrily with a kind expression. Jian Chen looked at the grandfather for a moment before silently following the fatty away. The grandfather smiled as he watched Jian Chen walk away. This youngster is quite the strange one. Right by his side, the father of the fatty appeared with a hoe in hand as he spoke. "Father, could it be that even you cannot see what this Jian Chen is like? This child is no ordinary one. He is no small frog within the pond." The grandfather let out a sigh before leaving with the hoe still on his shoulder. After listening to his father's evaluation of Jian Chen, the middle-aged man had a thunderstruck expression. Looking at Jian Chen's back, he said nothing and instead followed his father toward the fields. On the road, the fatty continued to give Jian Chen some information about the village, like saying that it was within the Valley of Longevity. There were mountains everywhere with precipitous peaks that were hard to climb. The only way into this valley was a single road that twisted about more than a snake. This village had over 100 families living within it, totaling up to 600 people in all. Since they were cut off from the outside world, they could only rely on themselves to support their families. The entire village relied on Fatty's father to go out and bring them essentials from the world every so often, so they themselves never left. That was also due to the fact that the valley was exceptionally deep and connected to the biggest mountain range in the continent, the Cross Mountains. The valley was also home to thousands of strong magical beasts. The distance from this place to the outside world was well over 1,000 kilometers and was fraught with danger. Even if one had 9 lives, if one wanted to leave, it would be highly unlikely that they would be able to. Little fatty, if your father is able to reach the outside world, then your father must be a truly amazing person. Jian Chen commented. Of course, my father is super amazing. Not only does he teach the entire village how to cultivate, but he'll occasionally bring back a super strong magical beast for the village. Because of this, the entire village worships my father. The fatty said proudly. Since your father is so amazing, then your grandfather must be as well, correct? Jian Chen asked. That, I don't know, but I don't think my grandfather is all that strong. If he doesn't go fishing, then he's working the fields. I've never seen him bring home any magical beast, but he is the village elder where even my father listens to him. Have you ever seen the outside world?
Nope.
The fatty shook his head. I've lived my entire life in this village without ever going outside, but I've heard from my dad that the outside world is extremely large and wonderful. One time my father had planned on taking me outside, but my grandfather had stopped him and gave him a scolding. He said that I wasn't suited for the outside world, and so after that, my father never once let me out of the village. Suddenly, the fatty's eyes began to shine as he stared at Jian Chen. Jian Chen, aren't you from the outside world? How is it? Are the people as big and great as my dad says? Come on, tell me. Is the outside world as my dad says? Jian Chen nodded his head. Correct, the outside world is extremely vast. Far bigger than you could possibly imagine. However, it is especially cruel out there. One must be strong in order to survive. Little fatty, do you wish to see the outside world? Of course. I spend every day hoping that I can see the outside world just once to see what it's like. Suddenly, the fatty looked at Jian Chen with a serious expression. Jian Chen, you can't tell my grandfather or he'll grow extremely angry. Jian Chen returned the look. Little fatty, if you truly wish to see the outside world, you'll first have to convince your grandfather. No, I can't. My grandfather's anger is something you definitely don't want to see. Although my grandfather is usually kind, when he gets angry, even my father becomes afraid. The fatty instantly turned nervous as he thought about his grandfather. Fine then, I promise I won't say a word. Right after, the energy within the world began to ripple as a blue-colored light blanketed the entire forest before finally forming a large pool of water above. With a torrential downpour, the fire within the forest had been extinguished. Following the downpour, the sunlight began to grow darker as the previously daytime light turned to night. No matter where one went within a kilometer, there was only a blanket of shadows that made it hard to see even one's hand in front of their faces. But even then, the shadows began to grow smaller in scale from a kilometer to 500 meters, shrinking once more to 20 meters before finally transforming into a single black-colored sword that floated right in front of Jian Chen. With a point of his finger, the sword moved straight through the air and pierced through hundreds of trees before disappearing into the world. And as soon as the black-colored sword shot through a tree, the tree would instantly begin to wither away. The energy of darkness had a strong rotting nature. Slowly sitting back down, Jian Chen's entire heart was in turmoil. After his soul had fused with the sword spirits, he had managed to gain a whole new set of abilities. Now, he was fully capable of controlling any of the 6 elements within the world and could bend them to his will. Then, Jian Chen's hand began to rise up as a faint glow of azure and violet sword qi extended from his fingertips. Chapter 376. Control over all living things. Looking at the sword qi extending from his fingers emotionally, Jian Chen couldn't hide his joy at all. The sword qi was extremely strong thanks to the sword spirits and was his strongest attack. Although he had lost his light wind sword and years of bitter cultivation, he still had plenty of fighting strength left. He was not a cripple that could not fight. The faint glows of sword qi continued to shine with both colors standing side by side as if it were a natural scene. This type of manner was as if the two were mingling with each other peacefully. In a daze, Jian Chen stared at the azure and violet sword qi. He couldn't help but think back to when he was fighting the 8 Heaven Saint Masters. Back when he was at the final part of the road, the sword qi had fused in the same manner. With that memory fresh in mind, Jian Chen's heart trembled with some lingering fear. The fusion of the 2 sword qi had been extremely powerful, causing even Jian Chen to be afraid. It was strong enough to shatter the saint weapons of the Heaven Saint Masters as if they were made of bean curd. This was something that was impossible to imagine for him, but when he thought about the 2 sword spirits making a full recovery, he couldn't even possibly begin to visualize just what terrifying level they would reach in power. When Jian Chen began to think back to just how powerful the repercussions had been when he used the fused sword qi, Jian Chen could only shake his head with a bitter laugh. After the sword qi had fused together, they had formed a formidable power with devastating aftereffects. If it were not for the fact that he had been trapped by the other Heaven Saint Masters, Jian Chen would not have dared to try and test it out. Suddenly, Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat as he opened his palm, causing a mysterious type of energy to fill the air around him. The leaves on the ground began to lift up as if being attracted by some type of force and slowly revolved around Jian Chen. Closing his eyes, Jian Chen began to harmonize with the world to become one.
It was with a sudden realization that he felt his spirit connect with every single living thing around him. This feeling was similar to when he used the spirit sword, allowing him to control every living thing. Suddenly, the countless leaves slowly flowing about Jian Chen's body began to shine brightly with an azure and violet glow. With an ear-splitting sound, they all suddenly shot toward a nearby tree with a blinding speed. Without a sound, the tree was instantly pierced straight through as the leaves continued on without faltering for even a moment. As they traveled farther and farther away, they continued to cut a path through any of plants in their way. It was only after 10 kilometers that the leaves finally began to slow down, and in the end, disintegrated in midair without the azure and violet sword chi.
Whoosh, 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 whoosh.
Suddenly, wave after wave of sounds could be heard as all of the leaves still floating around Jian Chen transformed into a blinding rays of light and shot outward. Spearing through anything in their path, the sword chi infused in the leaves had only disappeared after 10 kilometers, causing the leaves to fall apart into dust. Jian Chen opened his eyes slowly and looked around himself with a stunned look. With a sudden thought, one of the trees near him flew out of the ground and floated 10 meters in midair.
Extending his hand, Jian Chen then clenched his fist tightly. Straight away, the entire tree exploded into wood shavings and fell to the ground. In the next moment, the azure and violet glows of light could be seen once more flying from the wood shavings. Flying upward, the wood shavings began to form a 50-meter-long sword that floated in midair before flying forward. As the sword flew forward, no matter if it was a tree that was tall enough to scratch the heavens or just a blade of grass, the sword cleaved it in two and left behind a smooth surface. In a moment, the previously peaceful forest changed dramatically as dozens of large trees toppled down to the ground. Jian Chen's eyes glinted with a bright light as he watched this event. His left eye began to emit a violet glow and his right eye an azure glow. This was a sight that would terrify anyone. With both of Jian Chen's eyes burning brightly with the two different colors, his hands both raised into the air. Suddenly, a strange sort of energy began to distort the air like the space itself was being frozen in time. To anyone looking, this would have been an extremely bizarre sight. Crack, crack, crack. Several of the trees floating in midair began to break apart into fist-sized pieces before starting to shine with azure and violet glows. The lights in Jian Chen's eyes began to recede as he looked at the sight dumbfounded. Both of his eyes had a look of disbelief to them as he slowly dropped his hands. As soon as his hands fell, the trees that were floating in the air began to lose the same color lights. Then, the tree pieces disintegrated away into ashes and scattered. Jian Chen stood still without any extra movements. This newfound change in his body was something that he simply couldn't believe. Right now, he was fully capable of controlling any living thing with the use of his azure and violet sword chi. Right now, the sword chi could be bent to his will and was practically an ability for him to use at any given moment. In the past, even when Jian Chen used the sword chi, it was when he used the spirit sword to fight from long range. The azure and violet sword chi wasn't limited to the light wind sword anymore. Even the Class 5 magical beasts had only been able to put up a slight struggle before sharing the same fate as the other magical beasts, finally crying out with loud whimpers. Within a single moment, 104 Class 4 and 5 magical beasts had all been annihilated by Jian Chen. This type of glorious battle prowess was something that Jian Chen would have never been able to accomplish in the past. Jian Chen took another deep breath. He finally had a general idea of what his current strength was at. Although he had lost his light wind sword and his saint force, he had gained a new ability. Not only could he sense the 6 elements in the world, he could even freely use the violet and azure sword chi whenever he wanted. Aside from these things, he also had an even more terrifying ability. The ability to mind control any living thing in this world as long as he was within the range of his spirit. Even some non-living things would be unable to escape Jian Chen's mind control. From a certain standpoint, Jian Chen's strength hadn't decreased at all. On the contrary, it had actually increased. At the very least, his newfound control ability was able to make quick work of a group of Class 5 magical beasts. There could be no construction without destruction, and it was only after destruction that construction could take place. After experiencing such a calamitous event, Jian Chen had been transformed. From this moment on, he would walk along another path of cultivation. His strength would break away from the ranking of the Tian Yuan continent since he no longer had any saint force to measure. Chapter 377. Executing a Class 6 magical beast. After testing it out, Jian Chen had a better understanding of his own strength now.
With a wave of his hand, a few hundred blades of grass flew up and stabbed into the bellies of the wolves.
With a strong thought, he managed to pull out all of their monster cores. After taking off a portion of his clothes, he began to wrap up the cores and store them behind him. After collecting the monster cores, Jian Chen decided to leave the forest. Turning around to face the way back to Longevity Valley, he knew he needed to calm down for a bit and digest the changes to his body. These bizarre changes were far too sudden for him, and the new power he had received made him feel like he was stuck in a dream. He needed to rest so he could adapt to his situation. Suddenly, the howl of a wolf could be heard, shaking the entire forest with its cry. Jian Chen's body suddenly stopped as a look of concentration overtook his face. Slowly turning around, he spread out his senses for a kilometer, only to see a 10-meter-long, 3-meter-tall blood-red wolf flying in his direction at breakneck speeds. Jian Chen didn't run, nor did he have any plans on running away. Although he was still as strong as ever, in the end he still didn't have any saint force anymore. His speed would only be a little faster than a normal person. He couldn't even use the illusionary flash or the heaven-stolen fortune since both battle skills required the use of saint force. The blood-red wolf quickly came to a stop in front of Jian Chen's position 50 meters away. With eyes that were bigger than the fist of an adult human, they glared at Jian Chen menacingly. Concentrating, Jian Chen immediately began to gather all of the earth elements in the world around him to form a 5-meter-tall dirt wall. Continuing to gather, the dirt wall began to compress before finally forming a wall of hard rock. At the same time, Jian Chen held up a finger, causing a single tree nearby to burst out of the ground and float beside Jian Chen while twinkling with the azure and violet sword chi. With Jian Chen's body hidden behind the stone wall, the wolf was unable to see what Jian Chen was doing. However, Jian Chen could fight against the wolf with his omnipresence-like ability. From its gathered knowledge and wisdom, the wolf had already guessed that Jian Chen was not going to be an easy opponent to fight due to his actions.
With a snarl, a large amount of energy began to gather in the wolf's mouth. Then, with a puffing motion, the ball of energy flew toward the wall with a whistling sound. At the same time, Jian Chen had already fashioned the tree to become a long spear that flew forward to stab into the ball of energy from the wolf. Following a large bang, the ball of energy suddenly exploded, causing the energy to wash over the area. The wooden weapons that Jian Chen was using were unable to withstand the energy and disintegrated into ashes. The man and beast had only been testing each other at that moment, but the destructive aftermath had completely reshaped the landscape around them. Both of Jian Chen's eyes shined bright with an azure and violet glow. The left eye flashed with violet and the right azure. Suddenly, countless blades of grass flew up around the wolf and instantly transformed into sharp sword-like shapes before flying into the wolf's body. Caught off guard, the blood-red wolf's body was suddenly riddled with holes, but it did nothing to hinder its strength or speed as expected from a Class 6 magical beast. The azure and violet sword chi was unable to pierce through the entire body as it had with the iron beetle. This time, it was only able to penetrate 3 inches in before stopping. Despite this, it was still a decent amount of damage inflicted. The pain it felt all over its body caused the wolf to howl in pain before energy began to leak out from its body, forcing all of the embedded blades of grass away from its wounds. Ayo! Even after all of the damage, the wolf had no intentions on retreating. On the contrary, it had instead grown even more berserk and transformed into a bloody red streak of light as it charged toward Jian Chen. Even more blades of grass flew up from the ground and took on the shape of a sword. With the azure and violet sword chi infused, they flew out to stop the blood wolf once more. But because of the large amount of energy rippling out from the blood-red wolf's body, all of the blades of grass began to slow down as they approached. Even the sword chi in the grass began to weaken as well. Thanks to the shroud of energy protecting the wolf's body, the sword chi grew dimmer and dimmer. At the same time, the azure and violet glow in Jian Chen's eyes began to grow stronger and stronger in intensity. All of the trees surrounding him exploded and caused countless of splinters to fly up into the air, protecting his entire body. With a single thought, Jian Chen instantly transformed the wood splinters to form a draconic shape before flying to hit the wolf. The very moment when the sword chi-infused wooden dragon struck against the wolf's shroud of energy, the wolf's forward momentum began to slow down noticeably. The energy protecting its body was pushed farther and farther back before the wooden dragon was finally able to strike its head, dealing a tremendous blow instantly. Ow!
The wolf let out another howl in pain as a large ball of energy shot out from his mouth. At the same time, the wooden dragon that had slammed into the wolf was scattered by the ball and the pieces dispersed into the air. Jian Chen let out a sneer as he muttered, "You are truly strong. Let's see if you can handle my strongest attack then." Jian Chen's finger formed a sword, allowing the special energy from the sword spirits to extend out a meter from his fingertips. This was a blade made of pure origin energy from the sword spirits, something stronger than the wooden dragon from before in terms of sword chi. In that moment, the origin energy extended out to fly at the wolf. Knowing just how strong the azure and violet sword chi was, the wolf instantly lashed out with his claws to bat away the origin energy from the sword spirits. But the very moment the two made contact, its claws were split in two. In that instant, the wolf's eyes revealed a panicked air. Unfortunately, the origin energy was already far too close to the wolf so that it wouldn't be able to dodge. In the end, the attack stabbed into the wolf's head. A heaven-shaking howl could be heard as even its soul had been annihilated by the sword spirits. With a bang, the wolf's carcass fell to the ground. Seeing the dead wolf on the ground, Jian Chen let out a sigh in relief. This one battle had made him realize just how far his strength had improved. With his ability to use his mind to control every living thing with his sword chi, he was able to easily kill a Class 5 magical beast, but a Class 6 magical beast was a little harder to kill. If he wanted to kill one, he had to use the origin energy of the sword spirits. In the end, it could be said that Jian Chen had already reached the level of a Heaven Saint Master in terms of battle strength. Collecting the Class 6 monster core from within the wolf's body, Jian Chen immediately began to drag the body back toward Longevity Valley. The body of a Class 6 magical beast was far too precious to waste here. If he could present it to the village in the valley to dine on such a high-class meat, then it would prove very beneficial for everyone. Suddenly, Jian Chen felt something in the air. Looking up into the sky, he could only see a muddy middle-aged man fly over before landing next to Jian Chen. This person was the father of Fatty and was also the very same person who had rescued Jian Chen. With a stunned look, the middle-aged man looked at the carcass of the blood wolf behind Jian Chen. "Jian Chen, did you kill this blood wolf king?" Revealing a small smile, Jian Chen felt a sense of satisfaction from this achievement. "Yes, I killed it." The father clapped his hands in applause. Not bad at all. The Blood Wolf King is a Class 6 magical beast of the third cycle. I didn't think that you would be able to kill one. Just what method did you use to kill it? Now that you've lost your saint weapon, you shouldn't have any energy left in your body. There was a good deal of confusion on the man's face. I used the power of my mind. Jian Chen didn't bother to hide the truth at all since it wasn't necessary. Using his right hand to cut the air slightly, a handful of grass suddenly jumped upward before forming a sharp sword. With the azure and violet sword chi infused in it, they shot toward the body of the Blood Wolf King. Despite it being dead, its body was once more riddled with holes. The fatty's dad could only stare in utter shock before speaking absent-mindedly. "What a mysterious power. This power is your mind? Unfathomable. Just utterly unfathomable." Jian Chen smiled but decided to not dwell on the subject anymore. "Uncle, are you heading out to the outside world?" He shook his head. "My father told me to come here. He was afraid that you would be in danger and told me to look around. However, it seems that my father's worries were unfounded. Despite the loss of your saint weapon, you didn't lose your strength. Let's go back, Jian Chen. It's almost time for the noon meal." With that, the man flew into the air before quickly disappearing from sight. Seeing the man disappear, Jian Chen showed an envious expression. The ability to fly through the sky had always been one of his goals. Suddenly, the fatty's father came back. Seeing how Jian Chen was still on the ground, he asked with concern, "Jian Chen, are you not able to fly?" Shaking his head, Jian Chen replied, "I haven't yet grasped the way to do so. Flying is a difficult challenge for me." "It should be no problem for me to look into it when we return to the village, however, at this moment." "Ah, is that so? Then allow me to take you back. The noon meal shouldn't take too long to finish, so by the time we return, it should almost be ready." With that, the man waved his hand, enveloping Jian Chen within his energy before bringing both him and the carcass of the Blood Wolf King up into the air and through the valley. Chapter 378. Celestial decay. Seeing how they were flying through the air, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel excited. The power of flight was something he would soon be able to achieve. Since he was able to control the elements in the world with his mind, flying would not be a problem for him. He just hadn't discovered the trick yet. Given some time and experimentation, then he would be able to attain flight just like the Heaven Saint Masters. Slowly closing his eyes, Jian Chen began to feel for the wind element surrounding him and began to figure out the trick to flying and to increase the speed. Flying seemed simple, but there were many significant details to be learned first. It required constant practice in order to excel at it. Otherwise, if a beginner student were to try to fly 100 meters in the air and was hit by a sudden gust of wind, he would be unable to control his flight. The speed they were flying at was extremely fast. It didn't take long for Jian Chen and the man to return to the valley. It was noon by now and smoke could be seen spiraling up from the village. At least 5 men could be seen scurrying around the village in preparation. The middle-aged man didn't bother to hide their entrance and pulled both Jian Chen and the carcass of the Blood Wolf King to the center of the village before slowing down. Hey, Xueqi has returned. Xueqi has brought back another large magical beast. Haha, it seems that the village won't be able to finish this much meat. With such a large wolf, who knows just how long it'll take. AI. Xueqi always brings back such a fearsome beast for the village. He has always done the greatest contributions for the sake of our village. As everyone began to show up, they all looked toward Fatty's father with looks of undisguised worship and admiration. There was no shock at all from seeing the two fly back. It was almost as if it was a regular sight. The father let out a laughing smile before replying back to everyone enthusiastically. There was no hint of arrogance normally seen in a Heaven Saint Master and just kindness instead. Xueqi, you are too amazing. It doesn't take much thought to know that this wolf was extremely strong, but you killed it easily. One of the men laughed. The man shook his head. Everyone misunderstands. This magical beast wasn't Dash. As the middle-aged man spoke, Jian Chen cut in abruptly. Uncle, let's hurry up and divide up the Blood Wolf King. The fresher it is, the better it will taste. Fatty's father laughed. Fine, fine, De Zhuang. Go and find some of the more able-bodied men to skin the carcass and divide up the meat. You got it. The man responded enthusiastically before gathering up the men. Whoa, Dad, you brought back another big magical beast. A cordial voice could be heard from behind as a muddy fatty could be seen walking with a hoe in hand. He must have returned from tilling the fields with his grandfather. But you must know, all those within the continent who have reached the Saint Ruler realm have always decided to shun the world. It is very rare that they roam the outside world. Jian Chen narrowed his eyes as he thought about the words. This junior has always thought that those who have reached such a level have practically detached themselves from the secular world and all of the worldly enticements. That is why they do not appear in the outside world often. But hearing Elder Xiu's words, is that the true reason? Correct. The situation isn't as you thought. For all those who have reached the Saint Ruler realm, they have already comprehended the existence of the profound mysteries of the world. At the same time of gaining such a strength, they also feel the restrictions of the world. The restrictions of the world? Jian Chen was extremely curious now. This was the very first time he had heard of such a matter relating to a saint ruler. Correct, the restrictions of the world. After reaching the realm of the saint ruler, they will receive the punishment of the celestial decay. The celestial decay is a terrifying matter that has never been broken free from. It's a rule that is specifically directed toward those saint rulers who have violated any of the laws. Elder Xiu's face grew somber as he talked, an indicator of just how terrifying the celestial decay was. Elder Xiu, just what is this celestial decay? Is it truly that terrifying? Jian Chen was curious. He had never heard of such a thing before, so it was hard to not be curious. The celestial decay is a law of the world that transcends time itself. It is able to eliminate or discipline those at the saint ruler level or higher. There are 5 different stages to the celestial decay. The hair becomes as dry as hay, the body withers away, the blood within the body evaporates, the inner organs begin to burn, and finally the soul itself dies out. By this point, the body and soul are truly extinguished. Within the Tianyuan continent, no matter how strong of an ability one has, if they commit a great sin, they will not be able to escape the punishment of the celestial decay. Thus, the celestial decay is a rule that regulates even saint rulers to prevent them from committing any sins. Then what is considered to be committing a great sin? Jian Chen asked. At that moment, the two men had reached the fields. Swinging his hoe down to till the earth, Elder Xueqi began to speak. The exact details are unknown, but after many years, those who have violated the rules of the world spoke of their experiences. From this, we gathered that a saint ruler who slaughters countless innocents or one who commits an act of injuring the heavens will undoubtedly receive the punishment of the celestial decay. Other than that, we are still not sure what else violates the rules. The celestial decay is a law of the world that regulates saint rulers and higher from committing any sins.
But it has never appeared within a saint ruler that has secluded himself from the world.
The reason why is because of one thing: conscience. Conscience? Jian Chen asked. Correct, it is conscience. The world of mortals is a large vat. If one is pure and honest, then they will dye the human world with color. To lose your conscience is to be weak-willed and give in to the temptations of money and power. If a saint ruler wishes to progress in improvement, they must continue to try and comprehend the profound mysteries of the world. One's attitude toward the profound mysteries of the world must be calm and be able to withstand any of the worldly temptations. Once the soul is as close to the world as possible, that is when the comprehension of the profound mysteries of the world come even faster. If one is swayed by the worldly temptations, then they would be stuck in a game like Go. No matter where you go and no matter how much you try to harmonize with the world, it will be impossible to comprehend the profound mysteries of the world. If one cannot regain their conscience, then there can be no progress. Elder Xueqi dug his hoe into the ground again and again as he spoke to Jian Chen. Hearing this, Jian Chen had no words to say. He continued to think about the words Elder Xueqi had said. His words had brought about a great revelation for Jian Chen. Truly, listening to the words of a wise man was superior than to studying books for 10 years. A saint ruler's way of cultivation was not like the regular way of cultivating saint force to improve themselves. They walked a different path by trying to comprehend the profound mysteries of the world. Youngster, I can tell that you are not a fish meant for the pond. You will have a grand future. Despite the loss of your saint weapon, it has done nothing to impact your future growth.
I only wish for you to grab hold of your conscience and to not be lost in the mortal world. Break away from the world and cultivate to the very peak.
Elder Xueqi stared at Jian Chen with a heavy gaze. The origin energy is very weak, so it hasn't reached an optimal state yet. Jian Chen replied with a half-truth. So that's it. The elder suddenly came to a realization. Youngster, right now you are primarily focused on using your thoughts to attack. In regards to your cultivation path, you will have to continuously practice with your mind. Right now you can easily control tiny objects without a problem, but if you wish to push a giant mountain with just your mind alone, this will not be an accomplishable task. Aside from strengthening your thoughts, you must also comprehend the profound mysteries of the world. Although your strange origin energy is extremely strong, it is still an energy of the world.
The profound mysteries of the world are the way of the king since they are capable of allowing you to control the energy of the world.
I thank Elder Xueqi for his guidance. This junior will do as senior says. For the rest of the afternoon, Jian Chen and the elder both continued to till the cornfields. After learning many things in regards to the profound mysteries of the world from Elder Xueqi, Jian Chen had begun to ask even more questions. Elder Xueqi did his best to answer any questions he had, allowing Jian Chen to benefit greatly from his insight and added to his current understanding. On the second day, Elder Xueqi didn't call Jian Chen to the fields. Jian Chen still had his own things he needed to do, so he took the initiative to tell Fatty that he would be heading out by himself. Looking at a patch of grass, Jian Chen started to feel for the world energy. As the energy began to fly around his body, Jian Chen felt a slight breeze. Jian Chen hadn't made any movements and stood as still as a statue. The fierce wind began to pick up and his clothes began to flap from the gusts of wind. 2 hours later, the winds around Jian Chen's body had grown even stronger. Finally, his entire body began to slowly lift into the air by increments of 3 inches without stopping. Like earlier, Jian Chen kept his eyes shut as he continued to feel for the wind element around his entire body. His spirit was completely immersed in the thought of making him fly.
To be able to fly through the air was an ability that Jian Chen had coveted. And today was the day he would finally grab hold of it. His heart was already incapable of describing the joy he was feeling at this current moment. Bang!
Suddenly, Jian Chen's head struck against the tree in front of him. Straight away, his entire body lost balance and began to fall from the air.
Opening his eyes after the ordeal, he climbed up from the ground.
It was a good thing his body was different than a regular person's body. Otherwise, he would have broken several bones without the usage of Saint Force to protect his body. It seems that the power of flight isn't something to play around with. I must cultivate even more. Jian Chen sighed. Afterward, Jian Chen relentlessly practiced the power of flight. He continued to float 10 meters above the ground for 6 hours before he finally managed to piece together his experiences and go for an even higher height. Flying straight up for another 100 meters without stopping, he could only see wisps of cyan light flow around him. This was the wind element. At this moment, a villager suddenly spotted Jian Chen floating 100 meters up in the air. With his mouth dropped wide open, he began to point at Jian Chen with a quivering lip. But he was completely unable to finish his sentence in his shock. Elder Wang, what are you stammering around for? Did you forget how to talk?
The villager to his side laughed at him before looking in the direction the villager was pointing.
Straight away, he too gasped in shock as he cried. Good gods, isn't that the youth Xueqi brought back? How is he able to fly like Xueqi? Could he be a heaven saint master as well? The sight of Jian Chen 100 meters up into the air was an extremely eye-catching sight. Such an event didn't take long for everyone to witness. Each villager could only look on in utter disbelief. Oh my god, Jian Chen could fly? Is he a heaven saint master? God, this is unbelievable. Even the little fatty who was working the fields had noticed Jian Chen and instantly cried out in shock. All of a sudden, a strong gust of wind blew across the concentrating figure of Jian Chen, forcing his body to shake back and forth. Unable to keep control, Jian Chen began to plummet down to the ground. With a change in expression, Jian Chen began to collect his thoughts once more before drawing the wind elements close to him. At the same time, a cyan-colored figure could be seen flying straight for Jian Chen a good distance away. It was little fatty's father, Xueqi, who had seen the predicament Jian Chen was in and came by quickly to help. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.